Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the People's Choice Podcast for episode 54. And I have a special guest here, a woman I've known for many, many years, and she wants to be on the podcast to share just her amazing story and bring awareness to a lot of things that people don't talk about that should be talked about more, like mental health, domestic violence, trauma, stress, all types of stuff. And you even work in the medical field too, so I can only imagine the stuff you had to go through and see during this pandemic. But
yeah,
I'm so honored to have you on the show to take the time to talk with me and all my peeps here. Justice Fike, thank you.
Thanks. Hi. Yeah, I'm excited. Let's do this.
Definitely. So, Justice, I've known you since really sixth grade. we just talked a little bit off camera, but I come to find out though you wasn't actually born in North Carolina, was you?
No. So I was originally born in Fairbanks, Alaska. And then when I was about, I would say like 18 months, maybe a little bit older, me and my father relocated to Johnsonville, North Carolina.
Awesome. And that's where I ended up meeting you at when we went to good old Western Hornet.
Yeah.
What was that like growing up there for you?
Well, Johnsonville or Alaska?
Johnsonville.
Johnsonville was tough. We moved around like school districts a lot. So it was bouncing around different schools. I went to Johnsonville, Highland, Barron Haven, Bullock, BT Bullock and Sanford, and then, back to Western. And then I relocated to Alaska. So it was hard. So I've got friends from all over the town, all over Sanford and Johnsonville. So it's kind of nice to have like a big, friend base, but it was really tough as a kid, having nobody.
Yeah, I can imagine have to be the new kid all the time. And that's either going to go one or two ways. You're either going to learn to be like very social or antisocial.
And turn into antisocial very quickly.
Well, look, I'm so proud of you that you're able to get out of that shell and be here in front of, well, I know it's just me and you, but this will be seen by hundreds and then listened by even thousands. So that's big on you.
Very.
And then I don't know, when we talked, you wanted to bring up, awareness to a lot, because you've been through a lot in life. I remember we talked, you lost a lot of losses, your pop-up, you lost your brother, and dealing with that at a very young age and hoping that your message could help spread the awareness and also help someone who's watching this. So what was that experience like and how did you overcome that?
So I don't really think that losses in any type of way are something you really overcome. You do really understand how to deal with it over time. And it was harder for me because I was in Alaska for majority. My brother and my papa both were diagnosed with cancer, and it was kind of like a shock to everybody when it happened. And then me being away with my job being in Alaska, it was hard for me to kind of just bounce back and forth whenever I wanted. So that really, watching them go through it from a distance and then watching my family go through it from a distance was probably one of the worst things I've had to experience with that whole situation. And it put a lot of toll, like mostly on me, even though my family were like, it's okay, we've got it. Like, you have your life there. And so it made me feel really guilty once they passed, because I was like, I'm not here. There's nothing I can't do anything from here. Then the only thing I could do was hope and pray that it would, all work out for them. And, unfortunately it didn't. But, the most important thing to think about when you lose a parent, a grandparent, or brother, sister, aunt, uncle, whatever it may be, is that, especially in a very gruesome, painful way that they passed, is that it's much better because they're not suffering. And that's the most important part you want with somebody who has cancer, is that you don't want them to suffer anymore, whether that means they'd be here or not.
Definitely. Thank you for opening up about that, because I know that's tough. So I've dealt with loss a lot in life. Like I've lost a brother, I've lost a sister, I've lost one of my best friends. I mean, I don't know, you remember Jocko, from losing her. I mean, it's tough. It's really tough, and
It is tough.
I don't think I dealt with mines like it really. I mean, I've recently just been going to therapy about like I've had a lot of things. I mean, I've
Mm-hmm.
fallen off the train tracks kind of. So actually, my peeps, they don't even know that. But yeah, so I've recently just been doing that with so that's been kind of helping. I mean, I'm in this point where I've only been going for a little over a week. So it's still at the weird point where you're like, oh my God, I'm opening up to a stranger.
Yeah.
Then I got to
And
remind. Yeah.
I've been in and out of therapy for years, like since I was, I think maybe 15, 16 years old, dealing with just a lot of the things that have happened in my life. And it's totally normal and it's totally okay. And I'm glad you are getting help, because if you keep those things in, there's something about telling a stranger who can really help you process everything that you're going through, everything that you're feeling, and not have any personal opinion or intake on it. Really helps a lot of people. And it's not anything that anybody should ever be ashamed of. It's one, it's a part of life, and two, it's gonna save you in the long run for sure.
Definitely. And
Mm-hmm.
especially like I know when you were talking and you said you wanted men to be open to that, like to just to talk about mental health and to
Mm-hmm.
be encouraged to do things about it instead of just keeping it. Because that was me for years. I would keep it in there.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I would open up to somebody about it, they're just like, "Oh, stop being a punk," or "Oh, toughen up,"
Yeah.
or you know,
Boys aren't
things will
supposed to
get
cry,
better.
kind
Yeah,
of thing.
boys. Yeah,
Yeah.
boys aren't supposed to cry, or
Mm.
you know, I used to take breakups pretty hard too. So like when I go through that, and then they're like, "Oh, there's plenty of girls out there in the world. You're fine. You're young." And it's like, damn, like
That's not the point of it, though, you know. And yeah,
exactly.
it's there's a big, huge like stigma against men not being able to talk about their feelings and having to show that they're, basically numb to every situation that happens and just get over it. Like you can't, have somebody so close to you pass away and then you're just like, it's fine. It's not fine. Like everyone is entitled to their opinions and their feelings and their emotions and thoughts. And so giving this idea that men aren't able to feel those things or shouldn't feel those things actually does more damage than it does anything else. And I've seen men in my life and other people's lives that just absolutely suffer through that. And it's just awful, because I don't think it makes you less, you are aware that you have issues. I think it does make you more of a man if you do, and you understand that you're struggling and you need some extra help. But there's nothing wrong with that.
Definitely that,
Mm-hmm.
and I've learned that, you know. So that goes to all my peeps out there. If you're suffering either out loud or in silence, definitely reach out. Try to get as much help as you can. Like I'm doing it now. I've seen great promotions
Mm-hmm.
for even virtual therapy as
Yeah.
well, like
Mm-hmm.
BetterHelp. I've seen the ad for
Yeah, I've seen
BetterHelp. Yeah,
tons of ads for that. Yeah.
yeah,
And it doesn't necessarily have to be like a therapist or a psychiatrist or whatever it may be. It could be a friend, it could be a family member, someone like that you just truly and utterly trust with all your heart, that they won't go out and make fun of you behind your back, or they won't tell people about your struggles. It's really all about trusting. And so that's where, if you don't trust anybody in your personal life, that's when you probably want to reach out to like a therapist that is, abided by law to keep that confidential. And that, I think, is a really good thing.
definitely. What would
Mm-hmm.
you say to those who say like therapy is not an option to them? They feel either they can't open up to a therapist, or maybe they just feel they can't afford a therapist. What are some ways that you think could help people get out of the mental
Mm-hmm.
depression that they're facing?
I mean, if some people are definitely against going to therapy in general and they think that it's a waste of time, and that's okay if they feel that. But I strongly suggest doing something that brings you peace, whether it go for a long drive, go on a vacation alone, or just simply watching your favorite TV show, anything that gives you that type of serotonin without having to, lay out your entire life or be on medication or anything like that. Something that just really utterly just brings you happiness. And, for me, when I don't feel like talking to anybody, or I don't feel like, really opening up about my emotions, I watch, any Marvel movie made to man or Friends, or just start a marathon of some TV show I've never seen before, to really just kind of get you away from the real world for a little bit. Because sometimes your mind really does need that kind of break.
Definitely. That's so true. And I hope that really reached somebody and that they apply that, because yeah, I've talked to plenty of people where they say, oh, I can't afford therapy, or oh, that's not really an option in my
And
life.
it's ridiculous because even in the medical field, I'm not like a nurse or anything like that. I work in the admission side of the medical field, and all I hear is that like my insurance won't cover this and my insurance doesn't cover that. And that's really sad that a lot of insurance companies don't see mental health or most medical reasonings as a part of healthcare. And that's something that really does need to change, which I don't know if it will anytime soon, but it's definitely a goal with a lot of people in the medical field who are that I know that are higher ups. They really want to see that change because there's way too many suicides going on. There's way too much domestic violence going on, and everybody needs. I feel like that insurance companies to a certain extent should be able to help those in need as well, and making it not only insurance companies but there's around the world and things like that. They need to be more opening and welcoming to all types of situations. And that's the thing, is that they're really stereotypical, women and children only, there's only things that they can do. But, with everything going on in the world right now, like, there's this whole Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, and
Yeah.
it's basically just ridiculous that a man has to basically scream for help when, all the signs and they're believing the woman over the man. And I'm not saying that like every case is that way, because sometimes women do it just to be spiteful, and sometimes it is the real deal, but it's all very valid, and I feel like everybody should have the resources to get the help they need no matter what it is.
Definitely.
So
And with you being in the medical field, I can only imagine some of the things that you've seen and had to experience. What inspired you to go down that field?
This sounds really selfish to say, but when I first started in the medical field, it's always, you can find a job anywhere doing it, no matter what it is. And that was kind of like where I went with that. And then once I got into it, I kind of learned it was much more than that. I started out in a little family medicine clinic, and, just hearing, we helped with, people who had addictions. We helped people who, anywhere between the pregnancy through the birth, we were there for the whole process of the OB checks. We dealt with, pre-ops for patients, and seeing and hearing the type of job I had. I took the calls for complaints, medication, refills and things like that. And just hearing like what some people had to go through just to even get the doctor's attention was absolutely horrifying. And then even when the pandemic hit, it was even worse, because we basically just, at the beginning, nobody knew what was going on. So we just kind of like stopped seeing patients, and that turned a lot of patients, angry. They couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't do anything. Pharmacies were closed. They couldn't get their medication. And I'm talking like diabetic patients, there's chronic pain patients. Like there was just so much. And there's a lot of changes that need to happen within, when it comes to bedside manner, and when it comes to like insurance companies and how healthcare facilities run. There's just a lot of errors that need to be fixed. But now we're in this transition where with COVID, nobody wants to come back into the medical field because of what they've experienced. And then the issues with, the requirements now, you have to be fully vaccinated, and some people don't choose to be fully vaccinated, which is fine, but now they can't practice the one thing they love to do. And so it's just been a mess. It's been an absolute mess, especially now I'm over at the hospital. And thankfully I work remotely, so I never really have to leave my house. But just hearing the things that go on within the buildings, it's just super sad. Even though the COVID numbers are lowering in Alaska, it's still, there's still a lot of requirements, regulations that we still have to follow just to keep those numbers low. And patients are still upset about it. I completely understand, but at the end of the day, there's nothing really we can do, but there's a lot of things that we can still speak up about.
Definitely. Yeah, I was going to ask you how's things over there in Alaska. It's like with North Carolina over here, it seems like it's really easing up. Like there are less restrictions now. A lot of places even don't even require you to wear a mask anymore unless you're going to like like the doctors or something. Is it like that over
Yeah.
there?
Yeah, so they pretty much lifted the entire mask mandate, except for like medical offices, and then of course local owned businesses still have that option for making masks required. Um, I don't think there's any talks about bringing lifting the mask mandate for doctors' offices, but I don't. I don't say it's off the table. I would say by if the COVID cases keep going the way they're going, we're probably looking at early next year.
Hopefully COVID is long gone by then, because
I hope so,
it's
because
been so stressful.
I know, and they lifted the mask mandate for airports and airplanes, so that's very nice.
Definitely.
Mhm.
So I know you also wanted to touch on like trauma, like
Mhm.
just from people. So what are some
Mhm.
of the experience that you face with trauma and that you want to touch on to shine more awareness to?
Well, I think with the light of recent events about domestic violence is something that I think a lot of people are still ashamed to talk about, and it's it's not the easiest thing to go over. Um, whether it's a woman or a man that's being exposed to domestic violence, it's all awful. Like no matter across the table, it's awful. And I don't think there's enough talk about that, nor enough help. And I know that the reasoning for this is because, there's a lot of, you know, accusations without any proof. And then, they're like, oh, well, he's lying, she's lying, there, nothing really happened. And that's really something that we've kind of got to find. I feel like there's a way we need to find to kind of differentiate them on who's lying and who's telling the truth. I mean, at some point in somebody's life, I would hope not, but the way statistics run is that everybody's been open to some part of domestic violence, whether it's verbal, mental, emotional, physical, sexual. That's all kinds of violence that happen within relationships that nobody really seems to talk about. And I think that that's kind of like ridiculous, because if
Definitely.
anybody goes through them, they should be able to find the help and the security that they need to get away from that situation, because some domestic violence cases you can't get away from and you need that extra help. And if nobody believes you because of the stigma that women lie or men lie for attention, it needs to kind of you know I wouldn't say go away, because some people actually like really do lie, and they, just to be vindictive and just be mean and get revenge on, something so small, and are just looking for attention. But I definitely think that there's a way people need to find a way to actually listen to the ones that actually hurt. Because then there's a lot of things, I read all the time about how women or men are, they're abused in any type of way, and they feel that the only way out is suicide or, kill or murder. And that's just awful. Like it shouldn't get that far. And it should never get that far, especially when there's children involved, whether it's just, it's a sad thing to go through. And, I went through it. It's you really feel like there's no way out ever. And you feel like no matter what you do, whether they'll say they change, whether they say that they'll, do better, or, once we get to a certain point, things will be better, but it never changes. And I think that's something that a lot of victims need to realize. Like after the first time, it will happen again, and it'll happen over and over again, and that they need to really break away from it before it either costs their own lives or the abuser's life. And
Definitely.
not saying
Definitely.
not saying that like abusers need to die, because I don't think that they do. I do think that they need extensive therapy and figure out what's going on with them. But it doesn't have to get to somebody dying for us to really see that there's a problem.
100%. And yeah, it shouldn't ever happen, not once, like
No,
ever.
not
So
once.
don't think just because it happened once it won't happen again. So I'm
Mhm.
glad you touched on that, because I've known people that have stayed in very abusive relationships, no matter how many times, just trying to be a friend, you know, telling them, you got to leave. That's not okay. And they're like, oh, it happened one time. Like I remember talking to a friend before, and she's an open book too, so I know she wouldn't mind me putting this out there. But like she was telling me, yeah, me and my boyfriend, we got into a really bad argument. And then like he headbutted me, and then she kind of like nonchalanted it, and I'm like, whoa, wait, what? Like, what do you mean he headbutted you? She's like, yeah, we were like in each other's face, and he like headbutted me, but it's okay. We got through. No, that's not okay. Not at all. Like, you need to get out that relationship. And she was like, oh, well, I think it's gonna work out. And then slowly it got worse. Before it started as a headbutt, then it became fist, then it became a knife. Then he almost like tried to kill her before.
Oh my gosh.
And like it got that intense. And thank God that she's doing so much better in life. She left him, got away from him. She's even writing books about like domestic violence. So like I'm just so proud of her, because it was hard for her, because that was her first love too. So
it's hard, and especially when you're in it for so long, you create something called a trauma bond, and it's where you feel like you could not live without that person, because they've changed your mind. They've manipulated your mind into thinking that is true. And that's where I was for a while, because I knew that it was wrong, and I knew what was happening wasn't okay. But I was still stuck out on the hope that it would change, and that it would always change. And that once we got to a certain point in our relationship, it wouldn't happen again. And that's just not necessarily true. And then like halfway through all of it happening, I found out like from his past relationship that it happened then, and nobody believed her either. Yeah. So at that point, I pretty much knew I was doomed, but I was too afraid to do anything about it. And so that really took like a really deep toll for a long time. And I wasn't able to really trust anybody, especially when the relationship was over. And I just went through this really dark period where it was just, I felt like if they weren't treating me terribly, then I was doing something wrong. And that took a lot of therapy to get out of my head. And some days I still feel that way. And, you just have to continue to remind yourself that relationship wasn't okay. And, it's fine if you miss it, but you shouldn't go back to it. And that's kind of what I've told myself, because even after he and I had split, he about 6-7 months later, he tried to come, and it felt natural because we had been together for so long, and that reconnecting just felt so great, like it would change. And then it quickly, like it didn't change. And that was a thing that I have to remind myself whenever I think about it. Like sometimes even, it's been almost 3 years since we split, and I still think that it was my fault some days. And then I have to remind myself, no, that wasn't my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. I think the worst part I did was stay as long as I did.
Yes. And that's why I'm just so proud of you, and just applaud you so much just for speaking up about it and wanting to speak about it, and helping.
Definitely, it's definitely not an easy thing to talk about, because a lot of times I feel ashamed about it. And, and I have a really good set of people around my life now where it's like, it's okay to talk about these things, and it's okay to feel the way you feel. And, but the thing that really gets me is that I know that I deserve better. Yes. And everybody deserves better who goes through anything like that. And that, I think that was a really big lesson for me. And it really showed me what kind of person I was, and what kind of person he was, and who I wanted to be. And I wanted to be so much more than that. I wanted to be stronger than that, mentally and emotionally, to be able to look at myself and be like, okay, if this happens again with somebody else, I'll know what I need to do. I know I have the resources to get out there. And that's another thing for anybody who's been through an abusive relationship, is that they need to get out. And once they're out, they don't need to go back. And obviously, we can't ridicule anybody who does end up going back, because the trauma bond, it felt almost impossible to break at the time. It was really hard. And when he got bored in his life. He wanted to come and mess with mine. So that's when I had to really put my foot down and be like, no, I can't do this again. I'm not going to let you do this again. And that it's time to just kind of go our separate ways. And that's pretty much where I've been and where I've stayed. And I'm really, really thankful for it, because some really great things came out of it.
Definitely. It's like, standing your ground is really what really saved your life in a way. So
yeah,
I'm
and
so proud of you.
Thank you. And I can't say that I did it all on my own. I had, family and friends to really get me through it. And it's people that in my life that just, that just really wanted me to do better and see better. And I really think that, if I hadn't, I was on antidepressants, I was on anti-anxiety medication, and all of that, sticking with it and just putting, really, really great things came out of it. And I really can't really be happier with how my life has turned out now.
I'm happy to hear that things are definitely turning around.
Yeah, definitely.
So as you've been watching the show, and I try to keep at least two of the same questions because I just love the answers. But lately I've been adding a third one in there. So I like to really lean on gratitude these days because I know you touched on suicide before, and I was actually there myself back in 2014-ish. Real dark time in my life. It was just horrible. And now I wake up basically almost every day thankful that I didn't do it, because I would have missed out on so much if I would have done that. And going through it as a friend, seeing a close friend go through that, and just thinking about like, man, that was me, the pressure and pain I would have put on so many people. But like, back to gratitude, what are 3 things that you are grateful for?
Oh, I don't know if I can really put it in 3 categories.
We could. This is gonna be a first. We can give you a 3+.
Okay.
Right.
Well, I think the first and most thing I am grateful for would be my grandparents. I was exposed to kind of violence at a young age, and they really stepped in, and they, raised me their own, and they really were there for me in ways that sometimes my own parents couldn't even be there for me for. And they, I even now to this day, I tell them, like, you guys are my parents. I don't care what anybody says. And they feel the same. And it's really refreshing to know that, it sucks that a grandparent has to do a parent's job, but I really wouldn't have had it any other way with them. And the second thing, I don't even know. There's just so much to be thankful for these days. My friends, and they, there's not many, but the few who know, they know. And that's the most important part is, we have been, it hasn't been like anything traumatic, but we've been through a lot together as friends, as, basically now I see them as family. Like, they're my sisters, and I wouldn't trade the world for them, and brothers as well. They were with me through some really dark things, and that I didn't know that I would be able to get through. And whenever I needed them, they were there. And if I needed them, if I come to them with a problem, they're like, okay, do you want to talk it out, or do you want to go do something fun? Do you want to get your mind off it, or do you really just want to tackle through it? And so they've kind of helped me, process my emotions in ways that I didn't think I could do anymore. And that was another thing is, I have recently stopped therapy for a while just to kind of see if I'm able to do it on my own now. And, they really understand, my friends really understand, like, where I'm at mentally and where things are going in my life. And that's pretty much like one of the best things I could ask for, because my grandparents aren't with me. So my grandma lives far away, and then her husband was my papa that passed. So it's been a really difficult transition. So I'm glad that they're there for me. My boyfriend, he's great. He just gets it. And like, I don't, I'm usually not one to like gawk about my relationships, but he has really been there through, like, we started out as friends and now we're together. Now things are just, he gets it. And that was a great thing, because I can basically be like, hey, so this happened. I don't know how to feel about it. And then we talk about it, and then I feel fine. And I'm like, you know what? I don't even know why I was upset to begin with. It's not that big of a deal. And mostly, I'm also really grateful for humor, because humor really can help you through a lot of things. So I have this thing called, I've learned to laugh about the trauma things that happen in my life and make jokes about them, not to like strangers, but like to the people that know what happened. I like to just kind of joke around about it, just to make me feel a little bit better inside, just to know that, it was really traumatic what happened, but it's okay to laugh about it now, kind of thing. So I think that's probably things I'm most grateful for. Where the gratitude lies is all with them.
That's awesome. And it's crazy with my even with my therapist, like because as I'm opening up, and like I said, I'm only a week and a half into this, so it's been kind of,
it's hard.
weird.
It's very hard.
Very. Mm-hmm. And I crack jokes about like trauma or things I've been through, and she's like, "That's your way of dealing with things, you know that?" And I was like, huh? She's like, yeah. She's like, humor is your way of dealing with things, and I'm like, oh, dang, I didn't know that. Like it just brings a deeper level to you, like just learning.
And I think it's really important to laugh about things. I really do. I think it's important to just look at a situation, whether it was 20 minutes ago or 20 years ago or 5 years ago. I think it's really important to just look at it and be like, that was kind of funny when you laugh about it. Because sometimes I look back and I laugh that I was ever with that person that just really destroyed me. And I'm like, why would I do that? And then my friends and I would make little jokes about it. And it really makes me feel better, because I'm knowing that, wow, I wouldn't say it was dumb of me to be with that person, because at the time that was who I wanted to be with, and I chose to stay no matter what happened. But it's really funny to know now that, like, better, and it's great that you went through it. And I really think that, anything that anybody goes through and they look back at it 3 to 5 years, 10 years, 50 years from now, like, we're going to look back and be like, you know what? That was hilarious, and I'm glad that it's over, just kind of chuckle and move on. But humor is the best way to go through it. I highly suggest humor is the top tier of dealing with any kind of trauma.
Definitely. Do you have any go-to movies that you like to laugh about that maybe help you out during tough times?
So are Marvel movies. It's not like any specific type of movie, but it's just that genre in general. Yeah.
My go-to is the 21 Jump Street or 22 Jump Street.
Those are very good. Oh, I love those.
Yeah, I love those. Those
raunchy comedies are always a good idea, no matter what. Yes. What was one I just saw? One that like always makes me laugh would be like She's the Man, like the 2000s comedy movies. Like She's the Man. My friend's favorite is Not Another Teen Movie, which I think is awful, but kudos to her. Like sometimes if I'm feeling like I want something really, really funny, I'll watch like Jackass, or I'll watch oh gosh, what is that one movie? Pineapple Express. Yeah, just things that are, you're just like, why is this funny? But you still laugh,
Definitely. Like, yeah, those are my go-to, especially when I'm in like just not there. I'm like, okay, let me watch a comedy or something just to get me out of this funk that I'm in.
Yeah, and that's why I watch Friends all the time, because it's a comedy show, and I've seen it probably like 30 times, like through and through, and it still like makes me laugh till I cry, kind of thing.
Shout out to Joey. How you doing?
Yeah. Yes.
So, Justice, so what's one of your favorite, and I ask this to all my guests, but like, what is your favorite quote that you lean on during the good times or the bad times?
I don't know if I really have a quote. I've never been like a quote person, you know? But what my grandma kind of told me when I was a kid, and she still tells me this every single time I'm going through something, because I go to her before I go to anybody else. And I'm always like, I don't know what to do. Like, I'm like stuck. I have no idea. And the one thing that really gets me through is she always says, if you don't know what to do, do nothing. And she's like, then your answer will come to you. And so I've lived by that. And sometimes I have to be reminded of it. So, and it's really helped me a lot, because sometimes you'll just be sitting there watching Friends or whatever movie or TV show maybe, and then you have your answer, or it comes to you in the middle of the night. And I think that's a really good thing, is that when people don't, when you're just stuck and you have no idea what's going to happen, just stop and let it play out and see. You could make your decision without even knowing that you make your decision. And I think that's one of the great things for people who struggle with anxiety really bad, like I do, is that you just stop and you just wait it out. Sometimes you can't always wait it out forever, but give it yourself a few days to kind of clear your mind and think about it. And then when you are ready to sit down and think about it again, your answer just kind of comes to you. And I think that's something really important that I continuously live by.
Awesome. And that's actually, I think that's a pretty good quote right there, honestly.
I know. I think it really does, speak for itself.
So what keeps you motivated?
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I love giving questions where I could see like my guests, just their face like, oh, now I gotta think about it.
I think the one thing that really motivates me is trying to get the life that I want. So I have this dream of having children, having this nice big house, spending all my time with them. I have this huge dream of doing that. And so that's just kind of like, I'm not in a rush to make it happen, but if it, I'm just kind of getting ready for it to happen. Whenever it happens, it's supposed to happen when it happens. And that's kind of like where I'm at. But, getting closer to the life that I've always wanted, to where I can do whatever I want, whenever I want to do it at any point in time. And I think that's what really motivates me, is for the future.
Definitely. So I got this manifest candle that I light up before my episodes. My ex, she really got me into that. So not just speaking that, I got this candle lit for you. So we're going to speak that into the universe.
Yes. And a lot of people like aren't into like superstition or anything like that. But I don't really think manifestation is superstitious. I think it's just like you're speaking it. Like it's good. Like if you say it enough, it'll happen. And that's not making a wish or doing like witchy things. I think it's just like that. It gives you that mindset that it's going to happen. So we'll make it happen, kind of thing.
Definitely. So Justice, I want to give you the floor to address, like, let's say you're addressing someone who went through the things you've talked about. So you've touched on suicide, depression, domestic violence. What would you say to that person that's watching this right now?
I would say that it's okay to not be okay. I think that, and people say that all the time, but I really think it is. I think it's okay to not be okay. And I think it's okay to ask for help, and that nobody should be afraid to ask for help, no matter if they're, young, old, male, and, no matter what they're going through in life, no matter anything, they should know that they're not alone. They should know that they need to find someone that they trust wholeheartedly, whether they know them or not, and they need to work on getting to that goal of where they want to be. And I think the most goal for everybody is that they want to be happy within themselves and and people in their lives. And I think that if you want to be happy within yourself, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of dedication. I still struggle with it on a daily basis, but the key to everything is learning and accepting that you have these issues and these flaws, and that you need to reach out for the help that you deserve.
Facts. Love that right there. So Justice, where can all my peeps and new audience find you on social media, and maybe even reach out to you if you're, I know you're pretty sure, like I'm pretty sure you're down to listen to them if they ever want to
Oh
talk to
yes,
you.
I'm super open to listen to everybody and anybody that they need. My, I'm on Snapchat, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, it all. I'm on it all. You need me there, I'm there. I can give you all of my handles if you need. That's totally fine, and you can put them in the comments if you'd like.
Yeah,
And
I'll put them in the video, put it in the screen for you.
yeah, thanks. But yeah, no, if anybody, if anybody comes to me and they're like, I just need to talk to you one on one, no matter what, that conversation stays where it's at. And that's where you really, what am I looking to say? That's how it needs to be. That conversation, we sit here, we have this conversation, and I'll tell people, do you want me to give you advice? Or do you just want me to listen? Like, is that what you want me to do? Like, I don't want to say the wrong thing and I don't want to do the wrong thing. So tell me what it is that you need. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, is that when they say that they need help, they think that, oh, you're just expecting me to fix all your problems. And I'm like, no, because sometimes I'll call my grandma and I'm like, look, I just need you to listen to me because I need to get this out before I go insane. And so then, I just like lay it on her, and I'm like, you know what? And she'll just say, I'm praying for you, and you'll figure it out. And if you want to talk more about it, I'm here. And that's something that's really important, is that people need to understand, is that if you find somebody that you trust and that you love wholeheartedly, and you just need to let it out, just let it out. And, anybody is welcome to message me and talk to me about those things. And that's exactly what I'll say. Do you want me to help you figure it out, give you some advice, look for resources for you, or do you just want me to listen? And that conversation will stay there. It won't go anywhere. I won't tell anybody. I won't show anybody. It just stays between us. And that's all that a lot of people really need, is just an ear to listen.
Thank you, Justice. That's very sweet of you and nice of you that you're extending your hand out like that for all my audience and newer audience that may see this. It's
just somebody needs somebody, no matter who they are, where they are. Definitely. And if a lot of people don't trust people that they know to tell these things to, and and I think that's okay. And it's important to be okay with not feeling like you have to tell someone, like, of a family or anything like that, because when you tell family or really loved ones that you're feeling suicidal, you're feeling super depressed, you're having a hard time getting out of bed, you don't want to brush your teeth, things like that, because they automatically are like, oh my gosh, we need to put you in a hospital, we need to get you all this help. And that scares a lot of people, to the point where they do usually end up in the hospital anyways. And so I think it's important to reach out to some people that you feel that you trust, but that aren't close enough to do something so drastic, and a lot of times it doesn't have to end up in a, mental ward. It just simply, you just need someone to talk to.
100% for real. Is there anyone that you want to shout out? I know you mentioned your grandparents, and big shout out to them, but anyone else want to shout out?
Super big shout out to my best friends / roommates who, they stumbled into my life, and then they've just dealt with me for the last 2 years, my boyfriend, my godparents, just everybody that's really just been there. They'll know who they are. And I think that's the most important. I don't want to give out so many names or anything like that, because a lot of people still like to remain anonymous, and that's okay. And I think it would just be better that way, honestly.
Definitely. Justice, thank you so much for taking the time to come here to share your story, to help give people a helping hand, just spread awareness and lightness to a lot of things we touched on. I'm just so grateful that you want to do that on my show, and I'm hoping that this can reach many more people. Is there any last message that you want to say to anybody out there?
No, just thank you for giving me the time to talk. And it was nice to talk and catch up. If anybody has any questions, if they want to reach out to you to get to me, that's okay. If they just want to reach out to me, that's fine. but I'm just kind of here.
All right.
Mhm.
I think my audio went out a little bit. Uh-oh.
Oh no.
Yeah, it went out just a little bit. That's the thing about this
Oh no.
Zoom. That's why I can't wait to start doing more in-person interviews.
Oh yeah. Hopefully. I mean, I'm looking at relocating down to lower 48 permanently. So who knows what could happen. I do go back to North Carolina quite a bit. So
All right, whenever you come back, we definitely got to catch up.
I would love that. I would
Definitely.
definitely enjoy that.
We can talk about this episode and how great it's going to do.
Oh yes, definitely. I do. I probably will be there sometime this summer. I'm not 100% sure, but I'll work out the details.
Definitely. Justice, thank you again for, like I said, just sharing your experiences and really hoping that this helps someone get through the trauma, mental health, and open up more about it. It's like opening up has definitely saved your life and hopefully could save another.
Yes, definitely. I have enjoyed this talk.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And we are out.
All right. Bye.
Bye.